So, welcome, Mr. Cole, again. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much
Luke.
for joining us on the Joinery Hour. You were actually, I don't know if you were the first ever guest we had, but you were certainly one of the first. So, thanks for coming back.
No problem at all.
So, just quickly, for those who don't know who you are, please give you a quick introduction of who you are, what you're about, what you do, and why you do it.
Okay, I'm John Cole. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Secured by Design. I'm Chief Operating Officer for an organisation called Police Crime Prevention Initiatives, which does an awful lot of things. But the thing that you're most interested in is something called Secured by Design, which we've managed for the past 26 years on behalf of the police service. Police CPI is a police-owned organisation, and it basically serves all of the crime prevention initiatives, a lot of the crime prevention initiatives that have gone national within policing. And Secure by Design probably is the longest lived, not probably is the longest lived crime prevention project policing has. It's split into two main parts. The first part is what we call our official police security initiative, which works to improve security of buildings. And basically what we do is we produce a series of design guides, and those design guides are updated on a regular basis and reflect the types of crime that we see across the UK. And then supporting that, which I know a lot of your members know about, is our SBD product-based accreditation scheme, which we call the Police Preferred Specification. And that's there to recognise those companies that have taken the leap and done the necessary testing to get their products across the line. We want them to sell as many products, because the more products that they sell, the more likely we will see a reduction in crime. And just to give you a flavour of that reduction in crime, we are currently running at an average of 65% reduction in burglary, with the best and largest academic study in Scotland, and that's at currently still running at 91% reduction in burglary. So, and with other things as well, there's a reduction in car crime and stuff like that, of much lower percentages, around about 25%, but still significant in terms of numbers, because those are larger numbers. So essentially that's what we do. We've got currently circa 700 member companies on board now, and just short of 7,000 products. And those are all sorts of products over, I think it's around about 35 different categories, but by far the biggest category is doors, windows and locks.
Excellent. So, the main purpose of Secured by Design, how does it impact the wider construction and manufacturing industry? Because obviously what you do with Secured by Design is not just about breaking into windows and doors. There's a lot more to it than that. So just quickly explain the sort of overall.
The main purpose is really to try and translate what is happening out there in the real world. And we also engage very heavily with standards bodies. So we work very closely with BSI certainly on the door and window specifications. In terms of PAS 24, we do a lot of work in the lock sector. We work very closely with the Door and Hardware Federation, and we are constantly working to improve and update standards to reflect what is happening out there in the real world. It's unfortunate some of it isn't happening, but is being put now onto social media. Some of the latest changes that we've made with BSI and the relevant committee relate to an attack method that has gone onto YouTube and been viewed quite widely. But when we did some testing with some of the lock manufacturers, it turned out that we could definitely, not now, but at the time, we could definitely break into every single cylinder for sale in the UK. So we tried 30, I think it's about 35 different lock cylinder types, and that means that we'll have other configurations. So these are 35 platforms, if you like, and every single one could be broken into in terms of a cylinder. So that's why we had to make the latest changes to PAS 24.
Okay, and obviously what you do, Secure by Design, there's more to just locks. There you've got like the landscape, where even shrubs you've planted, the lighting, all of that. Give us the bigger picture quickly.
Yeah, okay. So the other areas where we see big reductions in crime, which I touched on earlier on, is antisocial behaviour, car crime and criminal damage. Criminal damage being the biggest or one of the biggest types of crime in the UK in terms of volume. And we see quite big reductions in all of those. So we're 25% reduction in all three. We've just done some work in London with the Metropolitan Police and the London Fire Brigade on how we could actually do a rapid entry system for fire service, but still retain security and reduce antisocial behaviour. And in the blocks that these are multi-storey blocks. In the blocks that we've worked, we've seen a massive reduction in arson and other types of crime, certainly, and massive, huge, almost obliterated antisocial behaviour in the corridors of some of those areas. So we're constantly working on different areas all around secure by design. Secure by design isn't just about doors and windows, but obviously doors and windows are the point of entry,
Sure.
so are incredibly important.
Absolutely. And so Secure by Design, we've created a scheme for the Joinery Network as a system house.
Yeah.
How do our manufacturers get involved, and why would they get involved? I think you've probably answered a lot of the why, but how do they get involved?
The great thing about what you're doing, Luke, it really is that obviously we see a lot of testing being done by all sorts of materials, and the big PVCU or UPVC, depending which way you want to, whatever the flavour is now, and aluminium guys, they have system houses. And that's where really timber really could win, can win, because essentially you're working as a system house. So the system house does the vast majority of the testing. And then that means that when the fabricator comes along, that he or she does less testing than would be required if they were doing the whole certification scheme from start. So it's an incredible help to anybody who's joining to have that body of evidence, test evidence that you've got behind what you do.
Excellent. And obviously the benefits of actually belonging to SPD, apart from being secure and the compliance, what is the draw for our manufacturers to actually belong to SPD? What do they get out of it?
I'm not going to do a sales pitch here, Luke, but I will say you do not have to be a member of Secure by Design to sell your products. You do not have to be a member of Secure by Design even to put up a window or a door into a Secured by Design development. But what it does do is help massively, because we do a lot of the developers and a lot of the housing associations and end customers understand what we do, and what we do is our due diligence. So we check the company, we check the individuals in the company, we check all the test data and certification data, and therefore when they know when they're buying a Secure by Design product that we test it and we check it on a regular basis as well. So the risk to them is far less. In terms of our membership, what I will say is we lose very few members that join us, and the vast majority of those that we do lose are unfortunately due to other circumstances relating to the economy. And generally, we have around about those that can renew, we have a 98% renewal rate. But if you take those that have gone bust, unfortunately, it's nearer 89%. But obviously, they can't rejoin because
absolutely,
they're not here anymore. But so there generally is, I say generally, we don't have much complaint about membership and what advantage it brings to them. That's my very poor sales pitch, Luke.
No, that's quite all right. And obviously, from our members and the industry, especially the timber industry in general, as we've spoken about many times, when it comes to Part Q, PAS 24, I think there's still this belief that these rules and regs are just dreamed up and one day plucked out the air and there they are. Obviously, you're heavily involved in writing these regulations and pushing through Parliament. Could you just explain your involvement in writing these regs and the process so that people actually get this is hard work that people are doing behind the scenes to push?
So Part Q is 10 years old this year in October, and it is well beyond needing a refresh. It is a very political world, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it. It's a very political world, and therefore we have to, whilst it's ready for a refresh, and we have refreshed it, so there is a revised version in the pipeline at the moment, going through the process. But in terms of Part Q, the main sponsor from government is the Home Office, with active contributions from the MHCLG. So we work with the Home Office and the MHCLG. And in fact, I'm meeting on Wednesday next week. I'm meeting with the trade associations for the different materials. So we go through a lot of pre-consultation discussion. Once there is a political decision to go ahead, and that is a political decision, that's something that we have been waiting for over a year, but obviously there are other things at the moment in more important at the moment. We have been waiting for over a year really to get the go-ahead to go to public consultation. We're still updating because standards keep updating. We're waiting, just for your information, we're waiting for a new standard from the Door and Hardware Federation called TS621, which is electronic locks, which are becoming more prevalent. So things that are controlled by these, specifically for flats, mainly flat entrance doors, the communal entrance door. But we're also following other countries where high-end homes are being locked and unlocked using phones. The TS621 and another standard from Sole Secure called SS Sole Secure 505. Those are two new standards that will go into Part Q for those that want to use electronic locking. Effectively, at some point, I will have to put a stop on any other new standards coming through once government has said we want to go to consultation. And the version that is available then will be the one that goes out to public consultation, probably for about 3 months. And then there will be a 3-month, once that is up, there will be a 3-month consultation period, in which case we review all of the comments. And what I'm trying to do in terms of meeting with the material specific trade associations is to reduce those comments down to an absolute minimum. So we are effectively just waiting really for government to give us the political go ahead.
Sure. And so it's obvious we still don't know exactly when, but it's coming. It's definitely coming. So what is the latest Part Q and PAS 24 standard that we're currently on, and what is it likely to be? And I know this is best guess educated.
Right. Okay. So the version that is in Part Q at the moment is 2012. So we've had 2016, 20. I think we're about four versions behind. We're now at PAS 24 2022 plus A1 2024, Amendment
Right.
1 2024. And that is the last amendment, is the one that I talked about, the cylinder snapping test that has been upgraded. That's the latest version.
Sure. So if you had to have a best guess, when do you think that this will actually come into play?
I would, and again, this is just a guess, and is that last time I came on your show, I anticipated it would be within 6 months, and that was probably a year ago, more maybe longer. I'm thinking possibly towards the end of this year it'll go out for public consultation.
Yeah.
But I've got a slight problem in that our Home Office sponsor has now gone on maternity leave, so I'm now looking for a new Home Office sponsor, which I'm required to have.
Okay, and obviously it's coming again. Until it's there, we don't really. But in your opinion, it's coming. We should be getting ready for it. Why? There's no point in us keep holding back. We need to move with the times, so that when it does come, we've done our homework, we've done our work, and we can just get on and make and supply product.
There is absolutely no doubt, Luke, it is coming because it's a building regulation. It needs to be kept up to date. Scotland has just updated theirs. For those in Scotland, it's a building standard 4.13. So Scotland has just updated theirs, and ours will come eventually. The big difference proposed is the change from new homes to all homes. And that is quite a significant change. And in terms of, you asked earlier on, and I didn't answer your question, and in terms of what version of PAS 24 will be included, that's a difficult question to answer at the moment. At the moment, I am proposing, depending on when we get the go-ahead, for it to be the 2022 version with a transition period in the future, possibly somewhere in 2027. That will then introduce PAS 24 2022 plus Amendment 1 2024.
Okay. And yeah, it's a minefield, isn't it?
It is.
But good work.
The thing that I think your members need to be aware of, that the 2020, the amendment, the 2024 amendment is really a hardware amendment. and it's the hardware guys that are the ones that really need to provide the alteration, and they are well on now with producing what we call the new style TS-07 3-star cylinders
Sure.
and protective hardware. So it's not a change in terms of your members having to change their product. It would be them using slightly different hardware.
Yeah, which we're already on. So the policing of Part Q or Pass 24, whichever way you look at it, has always been a bone of contention for our guys. It's been, and I'm going to put it bluntly, a reason why they say, oh, why should I bother? No one ever checks, which irritates the life out of me. I know it does you too. But
yes.
I believe there's been changes where building control are now run by HSE. I don't know the correct terminology.
Yes.
And how is that affecting things now? How is it going to affect things going forwards? What can we expect to see?
So a certain percentage of all new homes will be secure by design new homes, and those are checked by police designing out crime officers. So that specification will be checked. Those will be predominantly, but not exclusively, housing association. And I've got a meeting with the Homes England next week to talk about that. So all of those, and that's probably somewhere between 30 and 40% of all new build is checked by police in terms of the security anyway. In those that aren't checked should be checked by building control, but that's something that we're working on with building control in terms of upskilling them in terms of their understanding of what is needed. Part Q is one of those strange standards that I don't think building control has ever really got its head around, even 10 years later. But yes, I'm meeting with another Luke from next week with the joint trades, material trades associations, and he will be there. So they are taking an active interest now.
So it's basically the message is it's not going to get easier, it's going to get tougher, it's going to get checked more.
Yes, yeah. If the building regulation, if government decides a building regulation is going to be applicable to all windows, it will mean all windows and doors, all windows. We do have an out specifically for the timber sector for truly bespoke products, but they are truly bespoke products. These are one-offs for a specific reason. They're not a standard window range. It's a one-off for a particular thing. And that could be a listed building or a building in a conservation area, etc., which there is an allowance for within the regulation.
Excellent. And any other upcoming changes or initiatives from Secured by Design that you would like to speak about that we should be aware of before
we are looking at how we present Secure by Design in terms of, and this will be sometime next year because we've just published our latest design guidance. But I think with an emphasis on putting the parts that are relevant to Part Q at the front of the document in a more prominent position, so that those that are building can see the Part Q elements and much easier. We've also done some work now and are not far off publishing. So we've now we've had for many years, but that's just been updated. We've got an SPD commercial document. So we're concentrating a little bit more on commercial now. We've just done some work with Department of Education on a schools document, and we're doing the same thing with the health as well. So we've now got a health document that will be published in the near future.
So busy bee.
Yes, it has been quite